our FinCapDev Competition webinar series featuring Libby Leffler, a strategic partner manager at Facebook. The title of the slide is, the title of the webinar is Facebook's Libby Leffler to talk about Open Graph, Facebook social plugins, and app development best practices. What I'm going to do next is quickly go over what we're going to cover today. I'm going to start with talking about the webinar tool, then introduce the competition, FinCapDev, and then hand over the floor, so to speak, to Libby Leffler to take us through the Facebook overview and Open Graph and app development best practices. And then we're going to have a session on Q&A. So very quickly, before we begin, I'd like to explain a few functions of the program we are using for this webinar. You do have the option to listen in with headphones or call in using your phone. You may select how you'd like to listen in by clicking either telephone or mic and speakers in the floating box that comes up after you log in. Also in this box, you will see a tab named Questions. We will be using this for Q&A. If at any point of the webinar you have a question, please feel free to type it in and we will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the webinar. We are also recording this webinar and will offer the audio and presentations online shortly after the presentation. So why don't we get started? So I'm going to first take you through a couple of slides introducing FinCapDev. Before I do that, I just had a graphic that shows you where you type your questions, and you should be able to see that in that floating panel as well. So what is FinCapDev? FinCapDev is a nationwide challenge to develop new market-ready mobile apps that will help working Americans make smart financial choices and have better access to financial services. We are in the first phase of the challenge, which started on October 2nd, where contestants form their teams and submit proposals through December 10th. That should be 2012, I apologize. And the second phase, where applicants that are evaluated through the first phase and make it to through that evaluation process will be selected to fully develop their apps, which are then due on May 1st, 2013. Bit more detail, what you get by participating. In phase one, we have access to webinars on several topics of interest to you. Today, the webinar from Libby Leffler is the first in the series of webinars coming up. And in phase two, we have a number of resources to offer, including $100,000 in stipends to finalists, an additional $100,000 in prizes, which applicants will compete for, including a $50,000 grand prize, an opportunity to present at an event in June to a high-profile panel of judges, expert advice, and from the financial services and technology industries. We have several partners like Facebook that have signed on to help us with that, and access to a network of investors, nonprofits, designers, developers, and Yodlee's APIs from some of the most innovative organizations in the world. And now I'm going to introduce Libby. Libby Leffler is a strategic partner manager focusing on community partnerships and programs at Facebook. In this role, Libby works with the public figures, nonprofits, cultural institutions, and media organizations that partner with Facebook around high-impact integrations. Libby was the co-anchor of Facebook Live, the company's official video streaming channel during the 2011 and 2012 World Economic Forum meetings in Davos, Switzerland. And now I'm going to hand the floor to Libby.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Preeti. Really appreciate the kind introduction. And just want to confirm that with Preeti or others that my screen is now shared so that everyone can see the presentation. Is that right? Preeti, can you see it?
Yes, I see a slide with Facebook, the logo on it.
Perfect. Awesome. Great. So again, thanks so much for the kind introduction. We're really excited to participate in the webinar and have a chance to share with all of you some of our great examples, best practices, tips, and tricks for developing awesome apps using Facebook's Open Graph, our social plugins, and of course, our platform. My name is Libby Leffler, as Preeti mentioned. I'm a strategic partner manager at Facebook, focusing on community partnerships and programs. And a lot of the work that I do focuses on developers like you or people who are simply interested in building on our platform, whether those are Canvas applications that actually exist on Facebook, or whether those are mobile apps, of which we're seeing, a number of developers build those experiences and allow people to log in with their Facebook credentials and authenticate with Facebook such that they can share the activities that they're doing on their mobile devices and in your mobile application seamlessly with their Facebook timeline. So really excited to have the chance today to take you through a high-level overview of how we think about authentic identity at Facebook and our social graph, give you a sense of what we're building in terms of social technology in order to make sharing easier and simpler with your friends, and then also give you a quick overview of the Open Graph. I'll also highlight a few examples of developers who are building different applications on Facebook. Some of these are mobile, some of these are Canvas applications, but the one thing that they all have in common is that they are excellent examples of putting real people at the very center of every application experience. So I'll cover 4 different examples that highlight some of the great work that developers and other folks have done on the Facebook platform. And then I will actually finish with one of our lightest weight products, which is Facebook Pages. Facebook Pages is a free way to build your brand on Facebook. And I just want to cover some of our best practices, tips, and tricks for Facebook Pages in terms of using those to build a presence. Because if you do build an application on Facebook, chances are you'll likely want to have some hub, whether that's a page, a group, or another product on our Facebook platform where people can also connect with your application, with your company, or with your brand or entity. So that's what I'll cover today. So it's great to have the chance to talk with all of you. Facebook is all about people and their authentic identity. In fact, Facebook is built around an authentic identity. So on Facebook, authentic identity is monitored by the community because real people connect with their real friends. And this expression of a true identity helps people better connect with more people in more ways. The way we think about this is pretty simple. We believe that the web is being rebuilt around people. Previously, people would browse for information on the internet, and they would even search for information. Using that information, you would be redirected through links to the different things that you were looking for on the internet. The web is being rebuilt around people, meaning that the web is becoming more social. And as the web becomes more social, you do less browsing and searching for information, clicking around to links, or looking at anonymous reviews or sources, and it's more about discovery. So discovery of information through friends is pretty powerful. And we believe that Facebook gives you the power to discover through your friends and to connect with the people and the things that you care about most. These connections are happening on a massive scale. So you may have noticed that in the last couple weeks, we announced that over 1 billion people around the world connect on Facebook. This is pretty exciting for us. There are 1 billion people around the world that use Facebook. Those people form a living map of human connections, and 600 million of those 1 billion use Facebook on their mobile devices, which is exactly why it's important for people to build experiences that are enabled on mobile phones where people can share seamlessly and easily with friends. This means that conversations are actually happening at a scale that has never been seen before. As we all know, the story of our lives is made up of our connections to people and the things that we care about. As I mentioned, that's what Facebook is all about. It's all about the people that you know in the real world, your friends, your coworkers, college classmates, and the interests that you have, television shows, a favorite band, and of course, the causes that you care about. We make it easy to find people that you might know and instantly connect or reconnect with them. Facebook is also about giving people the tools to share your thoughts and opinions with those individuals. Through simple tools like status updates, we give people the opportunity to share their thoughts with their friends. With a tool like a status update, Facebook makes it possible to share your thoughts, opinions, and feelings that define you. But you're defined not only by your network of friends, but also by your interests, by your likes, and by your dislikes. Your connections include family, classmates, teammates, coworkers, people from your hometown, and we also have connections to things like songs, foods, sports, hobbies, and places. If you take a look at Andy Sparks here, he's sharing a video of his daughter, Maya. Maya's learning how to walk. And if you notice at the bottom, Melissa Sparks, Andy's wife, and 12 of Andy's friends have liked this video. This is just one example of the story of our lives and how it is made up of our connections to people and the things we care about. We identify with these things and they help us express ourselves. These are the essential people and things that really make each of us who we are. This is about the social graph. But in September 2011, so a few months ago, around this time last year, we launched something called the Open Graph. As I mentioned, on Facebook, you have connections to things like people and friends, but also to entities. You also have connections to everyday objects like songs, food, sports, hobbies, and places. And again, you identify with those things. They are critical to who you are, they are core to your identity, and they help you express yourself. The essential people and essential things that make each of us who we are. So we focus on building social technology that makes sharing easier. This technology brings us closer together, and our interactions online get closer to how we actually interact with each other in the real world. So if we look at this example of a social graph, we see Sean in the middle. Sean is connected to Wayne at the bottom right, and he's also connected to Katie at the bottom left. But just as in his everyday life, Sean is also connected to Coca-Cola, for example. It's a brand and a product that he loves, and he uses those products every day. Sean's also connected to Starbucks. Additionally, Sean's connected to the San Francisco Giants. He's connected to news, which he reads on Facebook. He's connected to Dan Rose on the right. And you can see there he's connected to Dan through Nike ID's Run app. He's also connected to the restaurants he loves. You can see this on the left. And through Katie, he's connected to music that they both like to listen to. I want to dive right in and give you a good example of one of our developers who built an interesting application on Facebook that allows real people to share and to engage with an entity that is involved in their everyday life. Remember, we first built the social graph that connects you with the real people you know. And then at our last F8, which is our developer conference, we announced the first version of the Open Graph, or the Open Graph protocol, that allows people to like any piece of content on the web. So millions of people were able to add their identity to the things that they love with the like button on Facebook. People can like movies, news articles, sports teams, and these things help you define who you are. But like isn't everything, right? It doesn't allow you to accurately express every single thing that you think or do. And now we launched the next version of the Open Graph, which allows people to connect to any object using any action and adds this to a user's identity. This is all about who you are as a person on Facebook, who you are as a person in real life, and the things that you do. Chase Community Giving is a great example of that. So I'll dive right in and talk about our first example. If you're familiar with Chase, they launched a project several years ago on Facebook called Chase Community Giving, and it's since evolved in a tremendous way. Chase Community Giving utilizes Open Graph on mobile and on a Canvas application on Facebook, meaning an application that lives within Facebook.com that anybody can use on Facebook, to allow people to crowdsource charities in their community to be eligible for a grant from Chase. Over the next 2 years, Chase is committed to crowdsourcing $25 million through Facebook. And what Chase does is really unique. They allow real people like you and me to go onto Facebook, to go onto their mobile application or their mobile device or our Canvas application, and to nominate charities in their community. These charities are then able to be voted on by real people. And the way that Chase uses Open Graph is that every time a vote is cast, that information is shared on my Facebook timeline, in my ticker, and in my newsfeed. So my friends are eligible to see that story. Libby voted on the San Rafael ASPCA to be eligible for a Chase Community Giving grant. It's a story as simple as that, but it's actually really powerful. First, the discoverability for the San Rafael ASPCA is tremendous. My friends are seeing this in newsfeed, and not only that, they know that I'm affiliating with that organization. Second, it's a really clear and simple example of telling my friends what I am doing. I voted on this organization to potentially receive a grant from Chase Community Giving. Very simple, to the point, and easy for people to understand. And when I nominate a charity, the same action happens. Remember, on Facebook, there are a number of fields of distribution for your stories. We have timeline, which is someone's essentially profile on Facebook, where this story can live. We have ticker, which is a real-time feed of all of the things your friends are doing on Facebook. And then, of course, newsfeed, which gives you a sense of the top stories with the people that you connect with most. So the distribution factor is threefold: timeline, ticker, and newsfeed. So Chase has done a really interesting job at putting people at the very center. It's pretty rare that you would see a large bank or institution like Chase crowdsource their philanthropic dollars on a site like Facebook. But because they've decided to bring people into the center of their project and allow them to decide where those funds go, people are more engaged and they keep coming back. And we think that's pretty cool. I want to talk about a more global example from Just Giving. You may be familiar with Just Giving. They're a UK-based developer that has an international giving site, allowing you to create campaigns that your friends can donate to and allow you to donate to campaigns that you care about. Just Giving built an application on Facebook that's now a Canvas application experience as well as a mobile app. It's Open Graph enabled, meaning that you can authenticate with your Facebook credentials and create a campaign if you wish, or you can give to a campaign and that story will be shared on your Facebook timeline, in your ticker, and in newsfeed with your friends. Last year, Just Giving was able to raise $40 million through Facebook, and they can attribute each viral share that they receive from a person who gives to a charity through a mobile app or the Canvas app to being worth $8 to a charity. So another really cool example of how an everyday activity like giving back or making a donation, which normally you would do online or you would do via check and not necessarily share with your friends, can be easily shared with your friends, giving you a sense of social credit, and also sharing with your friends the things that you care about most or the things that you identify with. I also wanted to share one application from Toyota. We thought this was a pretty cool example because, again, it's an example of a corporation that built an application on Facebook allowing people to crowdsource where goodness happens. So in the case of the Toyota 100 Cars for Good competition, Toyota gave 100 cars over 100 days to nonprofits. They did this in a really simple way. They created an application on Facebook that lived within their Facebook page. On that page, you were allowed to nominate local charities and community projects that should be eligible to receive one of those 100 cars. And when you did that, it created a story. You were able to share this on your Facebook timeline. Again, this is all about seamless and easy sharing. Then you were able to vote on which community organization or nonprofit was able to receive one of the Toyota cars. And they gave away one car every day for 100 days. A pretty cool example of how people can be invested at the very center of what you're doing. It's all about people. Toyota pledged to do something good, but then they relied on real people, the people that connect with their brand, to come back every day, to nominate organizations, and to vote on them. And lastly, I wanted to give an example from the nonprofit sector where a developer is building something that allows people to share in a really lightweight way with just the click of a button. Water.org built an open graph-enabled microsite at give.water.org where you can authenticate with your Facebook credentials and you can create a campaign where your friends can donate to. When you create that campaign, it generates an open graph story that lives on your timeline. The most interesting thing about this example has to do with customized aggregations. So when you have a customized aggregation with water.org, what happens is your friends will see that you created a campaign. Those friends can give to that campaign, meaning that they're supporting you in your effort to raise X dollars toward water.org, who provides clean water for the developing world. When your friends give to that campaign, the customized aggregation will keep track of how many dollars have been given toward your campaign. And instead of telling you that your friends have raised $200 toward your campaign, it will actually tell you that you've impacted 50 lives because they can attribute a dollar amount to a life that's changed because of clean drinking water. So using Facebook's Open Graph, you can come up with really creative and interesting aggregations that allow people to understand and visualize the real-world impact of the things that they're doing. This is an everlasting box on someone's timeline. Of course, they have the control to remove that from their timeline, but they can also feature that aggregation in interesting ways. So we think this is pretty cool. It allows you to help people visualize the activity that they're doing in new and unique ways. If you're familiar with Spotify, which is a music application, if you've enabled Facebook with Spotify and the Open Graph, you can see some really interesting timeline aggregations based on the songs that you've listened to. Same thing with Nike ID. If you've ever enabled Nike ID with Facebook Open Graph, you can see really cool aggregations of the trails that you've run, the routes that you've run, or the times that you've run. Again, a really interesting way to customize the aggregations as they live on people's timelines. I also mentioned that I wanted to highlight at the higher level how you build a presence with Facebook pages. So if any of your brands are actually using Facebook pages to have a presence or a hub on Facebook, I wanted to cover 5 really quick tips and tricks for how to make those pages as effective as possible. So I'll cover these really quickly, and then I'll wrap up and open up for Q&A. So first, program your page. Second, photos are everything. Third, engage other groups and organizations. Fourth, tap into tools. And fifth, analytics and insights. Now remember, these are tips and tricks for pages, but these are also things you should really keep in mind as you're building out your application. These are best practices that work well across Facebook. We've seen this work well on Facebook pages, but we also see it work uniquely well on people's personal timelines, as well as Open Graph applications and mobile apps that people are building on platforms. Program your page or app is a really simple way to keep people coming back. So if you look at this example from Ability Path, every Friday they have a campaign called Photo Friday, where they ask people to share their favorite photos on their Facebook page, and they highlight those photos on their Facebook page timeline. This is a really great way of engaging with supporters. You're helping people that are using your app, for example, or people that are connected with your page to curate content for you. You're highlighting the stories that are most inspiring and helping to keep people coming back by making your supporters the stars. So as you think about your application, remember that you should consider how people are going to use that application and what types of content they'll be creating. Is there a way for you to program that app or that page? Is there a way for you to make the people who are supporting that app or using that app the stars of the work that you're doing? Do you have a leaderboard, for example? Is there a way that you can connect the actions on your mobile app with a Facebook page that you have such that you can highlight the great work that people are doing? Think about how to program your page in an interesting way or program your app in an interesting way and make supporters the stars. Second, photos truly are everything. We see photos as a really engaging way for people to make a lightweight impact on Facebook very quickly. Now remember, Facebook is all about distribution. We want to make it easy for people to share their authentic identity on Facebook and share the things that they care about. Photos are a great way to do this. You can encourage people through your application, for example, to share photos if you want to know about the real-life impact that's happening, or you can share photos on your page or through your app and ask people to quickly like, share, or comment on them. Remember that each like, share, or comment generates distribution, whether that happens on a Facebook timeline, in Ticker, or in Newsfeed. And what you're really looking for as you launch an application or as you build out a page is that distribution, so that you have more people signing up to use your application or more people connecting to your page. Third, engage other groups and organizations. Undoubtedly, your organization partners with a number of other organizations in the efforts that you do. This is a really simple tip, but one that's pretty important. As you launch your application, remember that it's a great idea to think about what other organizations that you connect with who can help promote your application using Facebook. If you partner with other organizations in any way, have them promote your application using their Facebook page. Tag your app in a status update. Tag your page or your application in a photo. Tap into those partnerships to figure out the ways that you can leverage a supporter base that you might normally not tap into, and figure out how you can also give credit to those organizations as well. The cross-marketing potential is really important, and you can leverage a group that you haven't yet connected with on Facebook. Fourth, tap into tools. So if you're a developer, you're probably pretty well versed on all of the tools that we have available on Facebook. This can be really simple. If you're using a Facebook page, tap into every tool available there. Use cover photos, profile photos, applications, whatever it might be. If you're building out an engaging experience on a website and you want to open graph enable your website, figure out some of the ways that you can lightweight leverage some of our social plugins to give people the chance to connect on Facebook in a really simple way. One example of this is implementing a like button on your website right away that enables people to connect with your page. If you have a mobile application, for example, tap into some of the tools that you can use as a developer with our mobile site. We have a great tutorial for exactly how to use all of our features for mobile that all of you can check out on our developer site right now. All of these tutorials are available for you to use right away on our developer site at developers.facebook.com/mobile. These tutorials will actually guide you through the key steps to building, testing, and launching social integrations in your mobile web app. So remember, make sure that you tap into tools. And lastly, and we don't need to tell you about this, analytics truly are everything. Make sure you're paying attention to your analytics and insights as they happen to relate to your page or your application. Pay attention to how often people are coming back, how often they're authoring your app, and if they're actually objecting to any content. You can check all of this in your insights on your applications tool or in your page. We're really excited to have the chance to see all of the great things that you'll be building. So thanks so much for tuning into our webinar and taking the time to listen to some of the different ways that people are building on the Facebook platform and building really engaging experiences on Facebook. I'm happy to take any questions that folks have, but also want to make sure that I direct you to all of our documentation, which is available online for anybody to use. All of this is available at developers.facebook.com. You can learn about exactly how to walk through tutorials guiding you through the key steps to building, testing, and launching social integrations in your mobile web app specifically. You can take a comprehensive walk through building basic social features into your apps, and you can also get sample code and sample code use in tutorials in our sample app section. You can check this out on your phone or tablet or play with live sample code as well at facebookmobileweb.com/hello. We support a number of feature phones, and users interact with your web apps on m.facebook.com as well as within our Facebook native app. You can also jump right into a demo that showcases what's possible if you visit facebookmobileweb.com/hackbook on your phone or tablet. So I'm excited to take any questions that you have, address any issues from the webinar, and learn a little bit more about how you're thinking about building with Facebook.
Great. Thank you, Libby. I'm going to now begin to call out some of the questions we've gotten. So the first one is, from Mark. As a developer of a Facebook app, like the Chase community giving example, what information about the user can I access?
So all of the information that you need to discover about what you can actually access about the user or what permissions you can get from the user, you can find on our developer site at developers.facebook.com. So I would refer all of you there because all of that documentation is kept up to date, and you can actually see exactly what types of information you can access, what permissions you need to get from the user in order to access that type of information, and also understand a little bit more about best practices in terms of how people are actually asking for that type of information and what people are most likely to allow. As you can imagine, we're really careful with information that people using Facebook want to share. So any piece of information that you would be able to access, they would have to give you obvious permission in order to do that. So check out our developer site for information on that. And I would refer most really in-depth questions like that to our developer site because all of our code and all of our policies in terms of building for our mobile applications are available there.
Great, thank you, Libby. The next question we have is, can you talk about the difference between Facebook pages and community pages? Specifically, if it seems like a community page is connected to each application, but a page can stand alone, how do you recommend that a company should manage the two pages? And this question, I believe, is from Bill Finn.
Great. So this is a really interesting question, and we often have people ask us sort of the difference between what a community page is on Facebook versus an actual sort of page that you've established on Facebook that might be the hub for your application or for your brand. So when you see a community page on Facebook, these pages are dedicated to a topic or an experience that's it's owned collectively by the community connected to it. So you have an official page, for example, for a business or organization, a public figure, whereas a community page lets you connect with others that share similar interests and experiences. So you can learn more about a topic or experience via community pages. Our longer-term goal here is to move people to an actual official Facebook page. So if you have a brand or an experience and you want to create a hub around that brand or experience, what we are seeing as a best practice, and I'll give you a practical example, is that you have a Facebook page and then you have your app. So Just Giving, for example, has a Facebook page, and from that page, you can go to the Just Giving app. When you go to the Just Giving app, there's an app page with a button that says Go to App. So you will want to connect with people using a Facebook page if you have a brand or if you have a message that you want to share with them, if you want to educate the community. You'll want to use a Facebook page in addition to that application to leverage those connections as well. It's a great way also to think about, are there people that are going to use your application as active users of that app versus people who just want to passively connect with your page and understand your brand and what you're doing before they actually auth your app. So I would think about building an official page and then also having an application on Facebook. And both of those will be searchable by individuals, and they'll be categorized as a page and an app in search.
Great. Thanks, Libby. I have another question here. What interesting or exciting examples have you seen to date of developers leveraging the social graph and other Facebook assets in developing or leveraging personal finance tools or developing personal finance tools?
So, you know, we like to talk about sort of the examples of the things that we see on Facebook, less specific to the vertical and more really in terms of the actual interesting integration or experience. So let me give a couple exciting examples of recent sort of developments of things that we've seen that we think are pretty cool. And then additionally, I would direct people to our developer blog because our developer blog always highlights really interesting examples of sort of categories of things, whether it's cooking or fitness or music, where open graph integrations are pretty deep and robust. I would also recommend when people visit the developer site, we have a number of case studies and examples there of great open graph applications. And if you also visit, you know, any of our application hubs on Facebook, you can check out some of the best examples by category of things that people are building. The Kiva.org has a really great open graph example. They're all about making lending more social. So if you're familiar with what Kiva does, Kiva actually allows you to it's microfinancing. It allows you to make a small loan to a specific individual in a developing country. And when you do that using Facebook and with Open Graph, you can actually share that lending activity right in your timeline, in Ticker, and in Newsfeed with your friends. So we think that's a pretty cool example because it's a real-world activity that you're doing, making that loan to somebody elsewhere, but you can now share it with friends, which helps make it more social. We think that's pretty cool. Another really great example would be Khan Academy. So Khan Academy, if you're not familiar with them, their entire goal is to make education accessible to people anywhere in the world through various videos and exercises online. And when you actually complete exercises or watch videos on Khan Academy, you earn badges. The badges are a great way to allow people to sort of unlock achievements or level up. Many of you are probably familiar with gamification and how that works, but when people earn badges, the natural proclivity is that they want to share those on Facebook. They want to share those with their friends. And so Khan Academy has enabled that open graph sharing to become possible. So when people complete exercises or unlock achievements, they can share those badges using Facebook Open Graph protocol with their friends on their Facebook timeline. And you could similarly do this for a mobile app, for example, that was dedicated to saving. And if people unlocked a certain achievement, they could earn, you know, a certain saving badge, or if they unlocked a badge for, you know, sharing tips with friends, that they can unlock a different achievement badge in that way. So Khan Academy is actually a really interesting sort of education example that applies to a number of different verticals, because the way that they've applied the idea of gamification in terms of unlocking badges and being able to share those on Facebook is actually pretty ingenious. So we think that's pretty cool. And I think we have time for one or two more questions before we conclude. Is that right, Preeti?
Yeah, that's correct. And so the next question I have is, do you have examples of how turning a campaign, for example, the Chase community giving campaign, into a Facebook app has led to better outcomes than perhaps running the campaign off of Facebook?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't quite understand it.
So running a campaign using it as a Facebook app, has that led to better outcomes? Is that sort of a best practice for campaigns, or if you were to do the same thing without a Facebook app, or have you done any kind of comparison of that kind of thing in terms of the benefits, achieving the outcomes from campaigns like the Chase giving?
I think it would be hard for us to measure the benefit because the examples that we're sharing are things that have taken place on Facebook. So we haven't done A/B testing to see if there are examples of these campaigns not being run on Facebook that are less or more effective than the ones that are. So I don't understand the question, but I think for us, like, we believe because there are 1 billion people connecting on Facebook every single day all around the world, and these people, you know, 600 million of them are accessing Facebook either through our native apps or m.facebook.com through their mobile devices, that there's a great opportunity to scale an application very quickly on Facebook and allow people to share authentically with their real friends on Facebook.
Great. So do you have time for one more? Is that correct?
Yeah, one more question is great. Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask, I know that there's been a lot of talk of Facebook doing work in the mobile space in general, and I think you touched on some of it. But I'd be curious to hear, and you know, you presented a slide on how a significant percentage of your of the users on Facebook are mobile users. So can you talk a little bit about what Facebook is doing in that area?
As I mentioned in the presentation and in the webinar, I mean, mobile is extremely important to us. We have 600 million people that access Facebook via a mobile device. So we are increasingly focused on helping our developers build really great experiences for folks on mobile and integrating with Open Graph, our social plugins, and other tools to make those mobile apps more social. We also are really focused on building our experience with mobile first, so with really the mobile user in mind. Thinking about the way that people are utilizing the Facebook application on mobile, the things that they want to do, the things that they're used to doing on desktop, then now we need to be able to allow them to do seamlessly on mobile, because people are increasingly on the go and obviously using their mobile devices in ways that they never have been able to before. So mobile is increasingly important to us. You'll probably see our executives talk about this publicly, in the coming weeks and months, as they have been doing, and it's an important part of the way that we're thinking about evolving not just our platform but our business going forward. So great question, really appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you, Libby, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I'm going to stay on for a couple of minutes. I have a couple of questions related to FinCapDev that I can go over, but we do appreciate your time and your generosity, really, in giving this webinar today.
Great. Well, thanks to all of you who joined, and really appreciate the time that you took to ask the thoughtful questions. So good luck on the applications and with the contest, and we're really excited to see the things you built.
Great. Thanks so much, Libby.
Take care. So
thank you all for attending, and if you stay on a few more minutes, there are a couple of questions, at least one question related to FinCapDev that I want to get to, which is, how is this webinar related to FinCapDev? I think that was from Uma. And as part of FinCapDev, we have partnered with organizations like Facebook to provide knowledge and expertise about what these organizations bring to the table. In Facebook's case, it's social graph capabilities, the other tools that Libby mentioned. So as an app developer, as you're thinking about developing apps for the competition, you know and have access to tools like the ones we talked about today. In addition, Libby gave you examples of how some of those were used, so hopefully that would be helpful for you as you begin to think about developing mobile apps that use these toolkits. And finally, we are going to have Facebook as a partner continuing into phase 2, where we will have access to some of their expertise on a more contained basis if there are applicants and app developers that need it. So for example, if you are developing an app that has a social element in it, we are working on trying to provide that expertise if required. So that's the way, and we're going to be doing that with several other partners as well. And that's how it's related to FinCapDev. So that was the one question I had that I did want to answer, and I want to thank you all for attending this presentation. We have other webinars coming up that we would love for you to attend. The next one is on November 8th. And in that webinar, we will be talking about financial capability and financial access and what that means and how it's relevant to this competition. We will also be answering general questions about the competition itself. So we encourage you all to attend, and we will notify everyone who's registered for the competition about that webinar. On November 15th, we have a webinar by the U.S. Treasury Department that are going to share a new initiative they're calling the Open Data Initiative, where apps that need data will be able to understand what the government is doing in terms of making this kind of data, consumer-level data, available to app developers. And in the final presentation of this phase, the MasterCard will be sharing information about their own toolkits and also about open APIs. So we thank you very much for attending, and also want to thank everyone who's made this challenge possible, including our funders at the Ford Foundation, City Foundation, and the Omidyar Network, and several partners who will be working with us through this phase and the next. So thank you very much for attending. And this concludes the webinar for today.